Now to the first panel of the Decarbonisation Summit 2021, and I'm delighted to announce our exciting panel on empowering SMEs towards net zero. SMEs contribute 50 to 70% of the value of OECD economies, according to respected reporting body, the Carbon Disclosure Project. So really SMEs are the powerhouse where change in decarbonisation can take place. And I know our panellists have some really exciting ideas and views on this subject. Crucially, you can use the chat box on the live stream to post questions to the panel, so please do submit your questions throughout. And for those of you joining us here in Manchester today, please, if you have a question, raise your hand and someone will come round with a microphone for you to ask your question directly to the panel. So now, pushing on to the panel then, I'd like to introduce our speakers. They are Alid Humphreys, Director of Business Energy at SSE, Gary Stiles, Founder and CEO of Zellar, Dan Saunders, Founder and CEO of Zeti, and Michaela Wright, the Head of Corporate Sustainability at HSBC. Thank you very much indeed for joining us here today to share your ideas and expertise. As we open the panel up, it would just be great to go around and ask you all to give a little insight into who you are and the work that you're doing to decarbonise in your businesses. I will, at random, pick the person who most looks like me in terms of attire, Dan Saunders from Zeti. Please tell us a little bit about you and your work, Dan.
Thanks, Aid. I didn't read the memo about changing my outfit. Good morning, everybody. I'm Dan Saunders. I'm the founder and CEO of Zeti. We are a financial technology company that helps businesses, small and large, move and convert to zero-emission vehicles using pay-per-mile finance. So essentially paying for clean transport the same as paying for any utility. Thanks very
much. I'll just go along the line then. So Gary, tell us about your exciting work at Zellar.
You hearing me? Hi, good morning everyone. I'm Gary. I'm the founder of a company called Zellar. So we have created a software platform that helps every small and medium-sized business decarbonise and execute it in one place. And we overlay with the world's first green marketplaces covering data, energy, green technologies, carbon, biodiversity, and also volunteering. And those programs come to life through real-time profiles and scores that can be shared with those organisations that matter to their business.
Thanks so much, Gary. And Michaela, tell us about your work at HSBC, please.
Thank you. So I'm Michaela Wright. I head up our sustainability function at HSBC UK. So my role is actually to embed our sustainability strategy into all the lines of business and functions. So that's our commercial area, retail business, private bank area, as well as our risk functions, HR, etc. So, and that's across climate and social.
Thanks very much. Lastly, Alid.
Thanks, Aid. Good morning, everyone. I'm from SSE Energy Solutions. We supply electricity and gas to about 500,000 customer supply points across the country. We provide a route to market for SSE's renewable energy, so delivering that to truly help businesses decarbonise. And we also offer a full range of broader energy solutions, a few that Nathan touched on earlier, so building energy management and optimisation, electric vehicle solutions and charging infrastructure, as well as solars, batteries and heat networks. So a full range of both energy supply and solutions to help organisations decarbonise.
So a perfect balance of two very large companies and two smaller companies. So hopefully a great creative interchange of ideas here. Alid, tell us a little bit more then about your work and how you support SMEs to deliver on decarbonisation, please.
Yeah, so we do quite a lot to, I suppose, firstly raise awareness with SMEs around the things that they can do to conduct energy efficiency measures in their business and also to obtain renewable energy supply, so zero carbon energy supply. But a lot of the things that we do are around how do we actually help inform them of their energy consumption, so through the use of smart meters, understanding that the energy they use, when they use it, and importantly how that benchmarks to peers. So if you're a bakery down Deansgate, you can compare your energy to how that looks against other bakeries to actually understand how you're performing and are there things that you can do to actually improve your energy efficiency. So that's some of the ways, Aid.
Could you give us some insights into maybe the resistance you see with SMEs? Do they perceive clean technology, renewable energy to be more costly than other solutions? What are some of the friction points?
No, I don't think particularly costly. I think clearly there's an investment there, but you can start very much at the low cost end of the spectrum, so behavioural change. 60% of a building's energy consumption typically comes from lighting and heating. So you can do some very low cost behavioural changes to save energy, or you can look at investing in low energy equipment like LED lighting or optimising your heating controls and things like that. And then clearly there's more progressive investment that you can make around your electric vehicles or generating renewable energy. But I suppose the key is you can start small and you can start low cost and make a plan to move forward.
Yeah. Gary, I know you are an SME and you support SMEs in their transition to decarbonise. What are some of the challenges that you see and that you help SMEs with?
I think you've got the classic SME challenges: time, money, expertise, because they're already sort of grappling with the fallout from COVID. You've got Brexit, supply chain issues, cost of living crisis. You've just had another child. There's all these things that are going on, and yet climate change, we can see that it's very real. But I think the challenge for a lot of businesses is that it's not immediate. It's something that it's less of a priority than it is for some of the other challenges that I'm facing. So we're trying to unlock that for them, really, by trying to simplify it and try to support them with their motivation and engagement. I think one of our big successes is in creating sustainability officers, so offloading that problem from the business owner to, in our experience, young, committed, green employees that want to pick up these decarbonisation programs. And you're not talking about extra headcount. It really is like a first aider or a fire warden. So you can say we can upskill one person to interact with our platform and to be that conduit between the platform and bringing that cultural change through the business. And we're seeing some success.
So you actively try to engage with some of the younger people within a business to drive change?
Yeah, we have one in our own company called Elsa. I mean, although I'm passionate about climate change, we are still a business, and I'm spinning all those plates of running a business. But Elsa, she's full on. She keeps our feet to the flames. And are we doing this? We should be doing that. We need to invest in that program. We need behavioural change. Help me understand the scoping of these emissions. So if every business had an Elsa, then I think we'd have a very good chance of achieving our goals.
Talking about dynamic young people driving change in business, Dan, tell us a little bit more about Zeti and the challenges you face, the opportunities you see running an SME who are genuinely delivering on some really exciting fintech solutions for decarbonisation.
Yeah, sorry, dynamic and young are not two words I resonate with me. We've got a lot of challenges coming towards us in general in the UK, I think, and we often see that with transportation. That is actually the biggest source of pollution in the UK. So that's what we've gone after with Zeti. Very much a case of we see the ability to support SMEs and bigger companies by unlocking big pools of institutional capital to help those companies move across to clean transportation. And really the driver behind that is society needs it. It's obvious, you can see it everywhere. But if you can actually capture in real time the impact that shift makes, so what happens for moving a dirty, polluting diesel fleet of vehicles over to zero emission, you can actually unlock people's imagination about the CO2 and the NOx that can be saved, as well as the financial benefits of actually moving to a cleaner transportation fleet. So we've really seen the benefits of using data and then pulling people together, especially if you mobilise big pools of capital. That really makes a huge difference in making the transition go quicker.
So if you can measure it, you can put a case to investors to invest in decarbonisation.
Exactly. So I think, what we've seen over the last decade or so from renewables is this big inflow of capital for investments in rooftop solar, into solar farms, wind farms, etc. There's no reason why clean transport can't be the same asset class. But the way to do that is data and technology, and that's what we are building the financial engine for.
So Michaela, talking about large inflows of capital from global financial institutions, a nice entry point into chatting to you at HSBC about this. Do you see companies delivering data-led solutions that give you the confidence to invest in those smaller companies?
Yeah, so we have as part of our net zero strategy, we have a climate solutions program. So we invest in sort of the early stage startups, but that, and most people know with early stage startups, it often starts with sort of grant funding. And then when you get to the investable levels, there is, venture capitalists, etc. So we have a Breakthrough Energy Catalyst partnership, which looks at some of those later stages. And then at the earlier stage, it's part of our Climate Solutions Partnership. So we've invested in 43 ventures in the UK with Imperial College London and University of Birmingham. And we hope to expand that. We looked at existing accelerators with a track record, but the hope would be to have a UK-wide as well as which is part of our global programme. So yes, we are there ready. Risk appetite is always a challenge with any business. So trying to work out which are at the right stage to invest in those companies, which is why having specialist funds can be helpful. And then for our clients, we've committed up to $1 trillion in sustainable finance by 2030 as part of our net zero commitments as well. And that comes down to the SME level. So for the UK, we recognise that it's a different challenge for smaller businesses to transition. And exactly to Gary's point around the time and knowing what the solutions are. So we have a green SME fund that we actually announced at COP26. So that's 500 million. And it was one of the first funds of its time to actually have a cashback option for small businesses. So that meant that once they can evidence that, and it could be some of the low-hanging fruit that we talked about in energy savings and LED lighting, right through to maybe installing some renewables on site as well. Finding those solutions for the smaller businesses, working out how we can support climate innovation, and then at the right times through our different investment options as well.
Do you see a more exciting through flow of SMEs with really interesting ideas for business that perhaps you see as less risky over recent years in this space? What's your sense of the texture of change?
There is so many, what maybe call them new economy, new climate solutions out there, from the tech solutions, from the great work that Zeti and Zellar are doing, to the nature-based solutions that are out there. So I think it's like any new business. There's going to be some winners and losers in all of that. But within there, there's solutions for reducing carbon in concrete and steel, right to tracking. And I was talking to Gary earlier about the biodiversity net gains when it comes to nature restoration. And so I think that the main thing is we've got the solutions. It's working out which are the solutions that we need to scale up and quickly. And that's the bit that our Climate Solutions Programme is working on, working with partners across the globe to say which are especially in the energy sector, which are the solutions that we need to back to scale, such as I'm sure SSE have looked at green hydrogen and carbon capture, and which are the right solutions that we need to support and scale as well.
So as two businesses working very much with SMEs, could I just ask you both for your top practical tips for working with smaller companies? What would be one of your top tips, Adam, please?
So first, probably understand what you consume and when. So, anyone out there can get a smart meter. It doesn't cost you anything. You can start gathering that data about your energy use. That will help you to understand what you're consuming when. And as I said, you can compare to peers. So that would be a first step. Second is from that, then build an action plan. So look at the steps that you can go through, put that in place and take some action on it. So whether it's low energy lighting, or whether it's more progressive through to solar panels on the roof, or to moving your fleet to electric vehicles. I think the key is start with that data, start with your understanding of where you are, benchmark it against some peers, and then put an action plan in place. So that would be my sort of
very good. And Michaela?
Not really much to add. I completely agree with what Alad's saying. It's that the baselining of the data is your starting point. So, and just starting, you know, and that starts the education process. And then you start reducing one thing, and I'm sure Gary can build a lot more on this. So we found with a lot of SMEs, they start on their scope 1 and 2 emissions because that's more within their control. And I think that is the right starting point, because once you start that journey, you can then think about the wider scope 3 value chain emissions as well.
Changing tack then from the friction points to the opportunities, as you both run SMEs, could you do a sales pitch for how SMEs are great vectors for decarbonisation? Dan, would you like to take a lead on that?
Yeah, sure. I can at least try. We, as an SME, see a way to do things differently. I guess as a new company, we don't have to have legacy thinking. So the way we've approached accessing capital is to make it flexible on a pay-as-you-use basis. That is very traditional to how, very different to how traditional finance works, which is more of a fixed interest rate. We think there is the opportunity to now use data and use different risk-taking players in the market to start offsetting that and sharing that risk-reward profile so that the end user, so SMEs, can start benefiting from accessing clean assets, in this case vehicles, and paying for them as they benefit from them, and knowing that if there are periods whereby they can't benefit, they're not paying. Now that's very, very different, but again, it comes from a position of being an SME and not having legacy ways of doing things, and that gives us an advantage, I would say. I don't know Gary's position.
Well, I love a challenge, so I wanted, you know, when I looked at the marketplace and where I wanted to come in and innovate, it was always the SME. I've always been a small business myself. It is the biggest market out there, you know, the size and scale, and I think impact within communities. And I love the sort of the broadness and diversity of it. And frankly, you know, if SMEs don't decarbonise, we're all screwed. You know, we've got to get them on board and get them to decarbonise. So the challenge is always, how do you get them involved, and how do you get them motivated and engaged and to start taking those first steps? What Michaela and Alad were talking about is having those baselines is really important. And I think, you know, a lot of it is initial behavioural change. There's this view that going green costs money, and I think that's wrong. I think in the long term, by 2030, if you're not green, I think you'll be out of business. So it will cost you more in the long run. I don't think people are going to want to work for you or invest in you or lend in you or be supplied by you or buy from you. I think it'll be that brutal. Maybe that will come sooner than 2030. But in the short term, it's just behavioural change. Even before you start thinking about capital investment, you know, we're looking at record energy prices. So every kilowatt of hour of energy that you don't use, you are going to save money and reduce your carbon footprint. So it's a no-brainer. So that's really where you should start. But that's been our challenge at the moment with Zellar, because we're getting lots of businesses onboarding, and they're all so different in their profiles, their size, geography, gender, ethnicity, age. We're now working out how they start to interact with these programs and how we can get them to start taking those all-important first steps.
Thanks. I'll come on to some questions from the audience. So if anyone does have a question, please be ready. Someone will come around with a microphone. But I'll just ask another question. I mean, we talk. You know, it's a really interesting moment in human history, isn't it? You mentioned legacy thinking. I call this the heavy weight of legacy thinking. Traditional ideas that have been in place for 100 years are essentially the ideas that we now need to counter with the kind of innovation that's coming through from SMEs. So, you know, as a business that has been around for a large proportion of the last 100 years, with perhaps some of that element of the heavy weight of legacy thinking, how do you as a larger business counter that so that you are receptive to these innovative, dynamic ideas that are coming through from SSEs, Michaela?
Yeah, so when we announced our sort of climate commitments, net zero, so we recognise it's a transformation programme. So it's not, you know, it's not just here's a few numbers, some science-based targets will be, you know, net zero. For our balance sheet emissions, that means our clients, right? So we recognise to get to net zero by 2050, we have to support our clients on that journey, and that's clients of all sizes. And more importantly, I think there's that responsibility. So we've got an operational target and supply chain target of 2030. And we recognise within our own supply chain, we have SMEs as well. So we have similar programs for our clients where we did a big deal with Walmart, and we're finding a lot of the larger clients are recognising to achieve their net zero targets, they will have to support their supply chain to achieve that. So it obviously has some, good financing terms if you achieve certain greenhouse gas emissions reductions within that. But Walmart, and we're doing it ourselves with our own supply chain, take those smaller businesses through the Carbon Disclosure Project. And that's, it helps them to baseline, it helps them to start reducing that carbon as well. So I think from our perspective, there is the supporting businesses to transition, and then working with the new economy businesses as well. So working out who we should be supporting in terms of the new climate solutions, whether that's retrofitting homes, whether it's carbon capture, green hydrogen, and we're doing that through we've got the climate solutions program that I mentioned. We're doing some different mechanisms in Asia, looking at the transition of old coal-fired power stations as well. So trying to be more innovative in the solutions, and again that. I think we all know, everybody sat here knows that we are not going to, we don't really want to reach 1.5 degrees, but stay within 1.5 degrees if we don't all work in partnership, and we've recognised that as a bank. And one of the other aspects of our strategy is making sure we've got some globally consistent standards and frameworks, because if everybody's measuring different things, we're not going to know how if we've achieved it or if we're going in the right direction. Yep. So we feel that is a key part of our strategy as well.
In terms of working in partnership, I know SSE are working with Zellar. You're obviously working with us at GreenTV Media, so you're clearly very receptive to bringing on the innovative ideas of SMEs. Is that something that's part of the culture of SSE as a business?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you look forward, I've been with SSE 15 years now, and you look forward this next 10 years, probably look like the most exciting there have been. We're engaging in really new technology, whether it's floating offshore wind, green hydrogen that Michaela referenced, whether it's flexibility services and batteries. It's just really exciting technologies, and all of that is working in partners. So we're working with partners to deliver really challenging offshore wind projects, partners to deliver that are experts in tunneling to do new hydroelectric power stations in the north of Scotland, or whether it's working with SMEs that are adopting new data-led technologies to be able to bring services to customers. So yeah, partnerships are absolutely key, right across the board, from sort of top-end engineering solutions through to innovative data solutions. So absolutely key.
Very good. Any questions from the audience? If anyone does, please raise your hand and someone will come along with a microphone. A question from someone over here, please. Microphone coming your way any second now. Any minute now, rather than second. Would you mind just telling us very briefly your name and where you're from before your question, please?
Yeah, my name is Marilyn Comrie, and I'm heading up a new net zero industrialisation and electrification skills training centre, which will be in Manchester Science Park. And part of what we'll be doing there is to incubate some unicorns, businesses with the potential to become 1 billion turnover businesses. And we hope some of them will be led by diverse founders. However, I'm sure you all know, if you look like me, if you're female and you're black, your chances of getting investment are close to 0. So for women, the figures are 1%. Of female-founded businesses are able to attract VC investment. And also, you're not even on the scale if you are black. So for a multicultural city like Greater Manchester, we've really got to shift the dial. A third of our population are from minority ethnic backgrounds. And if we don't tackle inclusive investment, that means that a city region like Manchester is not going to be able to benefit from the ideas, the innovations of diverse people. So really what I'm saying is, and perhaps it's to Michaela, is what is being done to actually target funding, investment funding, for people who look like me or have the same gender, because it is a recognised problem and it was identified by the British Business Bank.
Thanks so much. A really important question. So, Michaela, how can we open up the green sector to be more inclusive?
I completely agree that it's a recognised problem, and not just across the green sector. I think all investment as well. So we've got a number of programmes. I feel like I should have all the detail with me today, but I know we only launched one a couple of weeks ago, a global entrepreneur program for, and it was for black females in particular. We also have, and we've had to do this because we've recognised there's a real gap. So, and we have a couple more programs in the UK as well, where we've focused on, we've got one with the Prince's Trust, and again, supporting, and I don't think it's Manchester, but it's Bristol, London and Birmingham. So happy to share the details afterwards, but I think it does need, again, more education for people to realise the issue is there, and that it will only go away if we're proactive, we acknowledge it, and then we put steps and programs in place to support those people that, for some reason, and I don't know all the reasons why, that access isn't there, but I think as an organisation, we have to recognise that there is some issues, and we have to make sure we open up those opportunities. But I can pass on details of the programmes afterwards.
Meet up afterwards.
Yeah.
The summit's all about people
Happy to.
meeting and forging partnerships, so please do meet up and share ideas afterwards. Any questions from anybody else? Please raise your hand. There's a question from a gentleman at the back there. Please just state your name and who you work for before your question.
Thank you. I'm Andrew Hunt. I work for Oldham Council. I'm Programme Manager for Oldham's Green New Deal. My question is, what are the top 3 things that a council can do to help its SMEs to go green?
Is that to anyone in particular? Okay, who would like to answer that one first?
I can answer that.
Very good. Go Gary.
So we are already running some pilots with councils in the East and West Midlands, where we are they're underwriting licences that Zellar is then going into those communities to engage with, those hard to reach small businesses, getting them onto their decarbonisation programmes, and taking those steps. And what we're then doing is aggregating that data back into that local authority to be used for case studies, PR, and ultimately to then inform potentially policy in the future, but certainly messaging and investment. There's an exciting one happening with the East Midlands Chamber and the CRF fund, where we are then sort of pinpointing funding to those local businesses on decarbonisation programmes, and then measuring the impact of that funding to go back into to government. So I'd love to talk to you after, if you're around.
Yeah, again, please do arrange to meet up afterwards. Anyone else wants to pitch in on that one?
I think I'd just add that it's probably a key role in communication. Gary mentioned earlier that SMEs are very busy. They've not necessarily got the time and the resources of larger organisations. So I think for public sector organisations out there, it's about providing information, but making it clear, easily understandable, so people can engage with it. And I think it's about accessibility, making it available at a time that suits the business owner, which may not be 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. It might be, a couple of hours in an evening that they've got to do it. So I think we need to think about how do we reduce the complexity, remove the jargon, keep it simple, and then also how do we make it available and the services, either the information or the services to support that at a time that's relevant for small businesses.
Thanks very much. Anyone else wants to pitch in?
Yeah, if I can. I also think there's an opportunity for local bodies to actually trial solutions first, so they can act as an advocate for SMEs, because a lot of this is about trust. And therefore, if public bodies can take a solution from SSE, take a solution from Zellar first, and show that it works in their organisation, that then gives them the power to go out and speak with authority to the SMEs to say, yeah, this really does work.
I mean, there are some interesting gear changes in terms of the cultural dynamism between local authorities and SMEs that need to be traversed, aren't there?
There's some really good public-private sector collaboration. I mean, what I should have had as well is, we've got a great relationship with SSE, and they are, giving out free licenses, to our local authority programs to give to small businesses to get on their decarbonisation programs for free.
Thanks.
Thanks.
It's going very well.
Any final questions before we start to wrap up, and we'll head off into the networking? One more question from a gentleman over on this side here. If you wouldn't mind just stating your name and who you work for, and if you have a question for someone in particular, please state that person.
It was more of a general question to everyone, and I think you may have answered some of it. My name's Jeremy Downer from Sumitomo Corporation. I guess stating the bleeding obvious, really, but the challenge with SMEs, there are an awful lot of them, even though they cover the 50 to 70% that you talked about. And a lot of the time, they're embedded perhaps in their location, in the place where they are. So the question is, let's rephrase it a bit. What does the journey look like to get to where we need to get to with SMEs? How do we engage enough of them in order to make that difference? As with any cohort, there will be a spectrum of interest in this. There'll be those who are active from the start and those who are perhaps less active for some of the reasons that you've pointed out. But how do we get there to ensure that we've got enough engaged? Is that 100%? Is that 90%? And by when? So I guess looking at it from the journey towards a full engagement and the ideal solution, which is everybody engaged and everybody decarbonising for that future.
Shall I go around and ask everyone to give two answers to that question, 2 points in answer to that, please, Michaela?
I put my hand up only because I think you've identified a key problem. Is it 100% of all SMEs that have to achieve net zero? We're part of the Net Zero Banking Alliance globally, and there's a UK arm of that called Bankers for Net Zero, and we're just undertaking some research with them on the proportion of SMEs, because we know a lot of SMEs might be one-man businesses or one-woman. Let's get that one correct. So, but they might not need to set out the sorts of plans that we're talking about here. So first of all, the proportion of businesses, does it need to be that 100%? And then what level of policy might need to come into place to help just, and I think to help support those SMEs. I think even, I would hope that government will recognise that we will need to put a little bit of extra support in for smaller businesses. They don't necessarily have all the capacity of the large corporates. So I think there's two parts to this: working out what proportion, and then what was the policy levers, and then what are the third part is how do we make it as easy as possible? And I think that will come back to data and making that data accessible, like through organisations like Zellar and others.
Perhaps as a result of recent events, government might be interested in investing more in SMEs, but who knows? Aled, an answer to that one?
Yeah, sure. So I think, it's a transition over the next decade or so to get everyone there. It's not all going to happen immediately. So I think we're all aware of that. I think it's how do you tailor the messaging? So there'll be those, as you said, that are active and want to engage in sustainability, but there's others that may be more focused on cost. And actually we can tell a great story about how improving your energy management can actually improve the costs, lower the operating costs of your business, and give you a competitive advantage. Or it could be those that are customer focused, and actually it's that customer requirements are for sustainable businesses. And so there's a marketing angle to actually encourage businesses to go green, to actually be more attractive to their customer base. Or it could be because of supply chain pressures, that if they want to work with larger organisations, they need to. So I think it's about finding the message that works for different segments of SMEs. And there's an angle there to take with each. And there's a lot of positive benefits that people can get from it.
Thanks. Gary, over to you.
2 points. So, change like this comes in waves. My business plan is simply about getting 250,000 businesses to decarbonise, in 5 years. That number, in our assumptions, creates that inflection point in society where it just becomes unacceptable not to be doing something. So we sort of condition society, through the app, a bit like Experian meets TripAdvisor, where you will then make a call on whether you want to engage with that business, because doing nothing, I think, will be like smoking in public buildings. You will look at it and think that is just not acceptable anymore, and we'll move on. So that's kind of where we're focusing.
Lastly, Dan.
I think everything's been said, I think. The only other thing to say is I think there's a level of symbiosis between corporates and SMEs. So SMEs are often part of the supply chain to the corporate. Corporates want their supply chains to be greener, but corporates are the ones that normally have the wherewithal to undertake these initiatives. So if corporates can undertake them first, take the learnings and share them with the SMEs that are in their supply chain, then that's when the symbiosis can really occur and both parties can benefit.
Thanks very much. Well, the Decarbonisation Summit is all about the symbiosis of ideas, not necessarily on this stage here, but also importantly in the networking that follows. So we will end this first excellent session looking at SMEs. Please do head off into the networking sessions. Our next panel will be at 11:10 looking at sustainable cities. But thank you very much everyone on the panel for such an exciting opening gambit to the summit and sharing your super exciting ideas. Thank you very much indeed everyone.